Hey, Pepin.
Yo, 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 yo.
Hey, you ever been in a dungeon before?
Oh, well, there's that time with the mistress, and, she's kind of nice,
No, no,
but,
no, not a sex dungeon.
whoa.
A dungeon like that has like skeletons and like uh bad slimes and
Bad
maybe
slimes?
a
Oh,
maybe a manticore.
okay. I dig this. No, but I'm intrigued. Have you?
Well, I have. I've created some myself too in
Oh,
a good game made by Mr. Gygax called Dungeon and Dragon.
oh, Dungeon and Dragon. I think I've heard of that. Is that with, what's his name? George Stiller?
No, I think that's Seinfeld.
Okay. Um, Henry Cavill?
Nate, we need to talk. Welcome back. So glad you guys could join us. I am here once again with my best friend Nathan Pepin. How's it going today, Pepin?
Yo, I'm doing well. How about you, Meter?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for asking. And we are joined by the host of Roll With Me, Wingate CV. How's it going today, Michael?
You guys are weird, man.
What makes you say that?
It's fine. Dungeon Dragon with Henry Cavill.
Just guest starring Henry Cavill.
Guest starring Henry Cavill. I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a weird Saturday morning. It snowed this morning. That's weird. I don't love that, but I love talking about Dungeons and Dragons. So glad to be here.
Fair enough. So when you do it, there's a couple of them.
There's multiple dungeons, also multiple dragons. So,
Wow.
yeah,
It's the best
a
way
little
to do
more
it.
opportunity, like variety down the line.
Now, you have a show called Roll With Me. Tell us briefly what that's about.
I do. Roll With Me is kind of an all-encompassing tabletop role-playing game podcast. A lot of the episodes are typically interview style. So I'll sit down with a gamer or someone who is in the nerd culture from any walk of life. I've had actors and athletes and musicians and all sorts of different people on to talk about their relationship with role-playing games, as I try to learn everything about them as I possibly can, because they're so culturally important and culturally relevant and are more popular now today than ever. So I spend a lot of time talking with fellow nerds from all different cultures about our nerddom, about D&D and Pathfinder and lasers and feelings and all sorts of great games.
So that is to say you are an expert on the subject.
Well, okay, so I'm not an expert. I've been playing role-playing games for 10 years, and I'm fascinated with them. I've learned a lot throughout my show, interviewing actual real experts, people who've been playing for 30-plus years, who have tons of experience with it. I've learned a lot, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'd say I'm an enthusiast. I've got a good library of knowledge on it, though, yeah.
Are you close to your 10,000 hours?
My 10,000,
Malcolm
over the
Gladwell.
last 10 years? Yeah, well, I guess over the last 10 years, yeah, I've put in a few thousand hours.
You're
I'm
an
pretty
expert.
close to getting close.
You're an
Okay.
expert. You have
Sure.
proficiency.
I do have proficiency.
You have proficiency in D&D.
Trained.
Now,
Trained.
Nathan, what do you know about D&D? And I'm not talking about double Ds.
Well,
Different thing.
okay. So I know.
I know one of those you're an
surprisingly
expert in.
a lot, but also very little. Because I'm very strange. Because back in the day, there was a content creator named Spoony One, Noah Antweller, and he made lots of content kind of similar to that guy with the glasses, but he also made all these D&D videos where he would tell stories about like epic tales and stuff. And I had no clue.
Counter Monkey.
Yeah, Counter Monkey. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And he had all these stories. Most of it was D&D, but some of it was like cyberpunk, and some was like other stuff. And he was just so good at telling these stories. Like I just got wrapped into it. I was like, oh, this is really interesting, really intriguing. And for whatever reason, I binged a bunch of videos like maybe a couple months ago. like D&D stories from other people, and I've also looked into the mechanics of D&D. That's a little bit different though, because there's this new game coming out sometime, Baldur's Gate 3, I think, and it's going to be based on version 5 of the whole rulebook thing. But I never played D&D myself, but
just the little Malifaux and their malapropisms are just like, oh, you're so close, bud. You're so close.
Like close enough. I know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Baldur's Gate's really old. I remember playing that on the GameCube with my brother back when I was in high school or younger.
Oh, well, Baldur's Gate actually goes all the way back to original Dungeons and Dragons, advanced D&D from the late 70s, early 80s. That's like Gygax's original advanced D&D red box. Baldur's Gate was an expansion. And they have so have you ever heard of the Betrayal game?
No, not that.
It's like a haunted house kind of game. They've got a couple different versions. Super fun board game. But they have like a Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. They've got the Baldur's Gate video games. They've got Baldur's Gate books. Like it's a big cornerstone of original D&D culture. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I learned all about the mind flayers, and those things are pretty cool.
Yeah, and mind flayers are wild.
And what are they called? Abominations that come from different universes. I don't know. The lore in D&D is actually very intriguing. It's very multifaceted.
It is, and so much has drawn from it since its invention, and I think vice versa. I'm sure it was inspired by so many things in and of itself.
Absolutely.
I read a thing once about that, like he was when Gygax was playing D&D, like his wife thought he was cheating on him, so she like busted in one time, and she's like, bunch of nerds sitting around a table rolling dice.
And this is when they were like playtesting. This is when they were like coming up with the way to do the game. So imagine how nerdy, like imagine like mid 1970s. Imagine how nerdy it was to like sit in a basement with your friends and roll dice, right? Just at like 13, 14 years old. Super nerdy. Try it at like 40 years old, but also instead of just rolling dice, you've got pages and pages of notebooks, like papers scrawled everywhere with little notations and equations written out, because you have to balance all of these mechanics and all of these dice everywhere, but just a bunch of grown men talking about fairies and elves and trolls and orcs and writing out mathematical equations about how they would actually work.
So that's one thing that's intriguing to me. So, because I didn't know what D&D was, even from the Spoony one's whole thing. I watched a couple videos from Critical Role, so I have a better idea of it. But like a lot of people probably aren't familiar with what it is exactly. But like my perception from never playing it is, it's like there's a dungeon master who might come up with a story, or they might say borrow a story from some other place, and then they have like essentially it's a setup game. There's pieces and stuff you can move around, and people play these characters, and some people will say role play their character and try to pretend to be that character, and sometimes they just kind of like go in just to kill things, kind of like Skyrim, and there's these storylines, and they could go on just one game, it could go many games, but there's like a fantasy setting usually, but it's kind of fantasy sci-fi sometimes, and they level up their characters, they do quests, they do things, but it's kind of like a video game RPG, but just very, very loose, and what's real or what works in the game and what doesn't is all dependent upon the dungeon master, essentially. Is that like a good synopsis?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, you are very close. The one way that I would tweak that, I think, is just boiled down. The simplest way that I've heard D&D ever relayed to modern audiences is from a guy named Spencer Crittenden, who is the dungeon master from Harmon Quest. He was Dan Harmon's personal assistant for a while. He's now he's a Hollywood producer and actor and whatnot. But Spencer Crittenden always introduces his shows when he does a podcast or does a show or something with D&D. He describes D&D like this. Think of it as a video game, like Skyrim, exactly like how you said, like with those video game RPGs. But instead of a computer, you have a person, the dungeon master. So you tell the computer what you're trying to do. You press X, you press A. And the computer tells you whether or not that is a success or a fail. So the computer basically rolls these, whether your attack hits or misses is up to the computer. Well, that's basically what the DM is. The DM is the processor, is the computer, and the dice are the way to mitigate the successes and failures. That's it.
Right. And so with the dice, so you roll dice for probability, so whether you hit, how much damage you do, and everything. And it seems like, as far as I can see from the outside, is the whole luck involved in D&D is a big part of the culture. Like, people say D20 a lot, or D1.
Yep.
And
D1?
Yeah.
Why roll a dice if you get a D1?
Nat 1.
At 1?
So a natural, when you roll a d20, so the term like d20 means 20-sided die. So d6, 6-sided die, d8, d12, d10. Percentile would be 2 d10s, or a d100. So nat 1 and nat 20, and it stands for natural. So the natural 20, if you roll a 20 on a 20-sided die, is the best roll you could possibly make. It's an automatic success in basically any role-playing game ever. That's the one. What is that? Icosahedron? Is that what that is? Look at you go! I've got a bunch of... they're all out of reach. But a nat 1 is the worst roll you can possibly get. And a lot of people say like natty bones, nat 20, natty twunzo, natty onezo are all different like ways to say it. If you have a modifier, like you have a +5 and you roll a 15, it's a dirty 20 because it equals 20, but you didn't roll a nat 20. There's a whole culture that goes along with it.
That's right. And with the whole like natural 20 and critical failure, like the one. So if, let's say you get a critical failure in something, that is like the results of that aren't like, say, set in stone. It's kind of like determined by the dungeon master. Is that right? Because I've heard some weird stories about that. Like someone does a critical failure and they like, fall and, slip down someplace, or they do this or do that. So that's one thing that intrigues me, because with video games, if let's say you just have a critical failure, you just die, or, nothing really bad happens exactly. Or let's say you have a...
because you can respawn.
Yeah, or you just reroll your save state too, which, maybe you can play a different way. But the idea that there's, say, things that can't be easily programmed, I think that's the open kind of narrative structure, which is intriguing to me in D&D, and that's why I kind of like hearing the stories. Like, people tell these stories and they sound like they're real to them.
Yeah. Oh, they do. Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely depends on the party and like who is going to, like, who's actually gets into the storyline, their own character, things like that. So I DM for a couple of different groups, and the way I like to explain it is, as the DM, I have a story that I'm trying to tell. I have this path that they're going on, and it's telling this story. And while I'm doing that, every character has their own story that they are personally telling. So everyone is telling a story while on this grander story, and it really makes it super interesting when everyone actually like wants to tell a good story themselves and wants to follow that main story and use that main story to help tell their own story. It can get really, really fun when you have a really engaged group.
Absolutely. And that's the fun of it. That's like the collaborative storytelling lends itself to some of the most honest moments between friends. I mean, you can start a D&D group of people that you've never met before and end up best friends 6 months later. Or you can start a D&D group of really close friends and be inseparable for your entire lives. I've been playing with the same group of people since I was 14 years old. I've been playing with the same group of people. And we keep having regular games. We've got like a Sunday game and a Monday game and a Tuesday game, and it just cycles between different iterations of those people. But it's the same group, same crew we've been playing with for 12 years, 13 years. It's wild.
It's pretty dense. Yeah. It's been something I've been willing or wanting to get into myself, but it seems like a lot of time, because it seems like setting up times in general is just kind of difficult. So that's pretty impressive for 12 years. Like,
the time is really only on the Dungeon Master. You can phone in pretty much any other role in Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or what have you. The DM does all of the work and all of the prep. It's basically just setting aside 3 hours a week, one night a week to play.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Meter, you're saying that you've been a Dungeon Master recently, or you started getting into it, and that it's a lot of preparation.
Yeah, it doesn't, and it depends on the person. I'm me, so I way over prepare for everything. So I've probably dumped 100 hours into the campaign before we even did a single session. Writing a skeleton to a storyline. I wrote out every NPC they might meet for the first 3 towns, which is probably going to be. I'm set now to not have to write anything for maybe a year before they actually like run out of stuff. And unless, but every NPC like has their own quest line. If they want to interact with that NPC, they can open up a quest line by doing so. Or they can just follow the main quest, which from what I found is what most people do, is they just end up following, we have this main mission, that's what we're following. But it kind of does also adds depth to the world. And it also gives me the opportunity to be able to like add in flavor and possible hooks for in the future, or maybe side things people can be doing while they're doing the main quest. So there's definitely a lot of extra work studying people's character sheets, so I know everything that's in their inventory and everything that's in their spell slots, all the feats they can do, all that stuff.
And that is all well and good, and bravo for that, because certainly, I mean, the keeping track of your players' equipment and their feats and their spells is very, very important. I would warn you about writing a campaign unless you know your party very, very well, which it seems that you do. You know the like dynamic of your party, but when writing a campaign, it's great to have the bare bones, the outline of a story. But I would warn you not to get too detail oriented in writing out the story, because what happens when you say, okay, well, we've got this, there's a maiden and she has been kidnapped from this town and she's been taken to the south by this dragon, and it is your journey is to find this your quest is to find this dragon and defeat the dragon and save the maiden, restore peace to the town, and your party says, yeah, but I heard there's this fuck-off good tavern over to the west, so we're going to go to this next town over and check out the brothel. Your dragon doesn't really... Yeah, I'm going to do something else.
Okay, you set off to the west. You travel for about half a day, and then you come to a roadblock. Guess what? You're going on my fucking path.
Fucking railroad.
I'll railroad the fuck out of you if I have to. Like, and I try not to. The parties that I play with, they want to progress the story. They understand like I've dumped time into this, so they're not dicks. And they're not trying to just circumnavigate the actual plot. So I've been really lucky in that regard, because I have heard a lot of tales about murder hobos who will just run around and kill any NPC they see. They have no town, they have no home. They just walk around and kill people.
Yeah, you can be evil. You can be as evil as the day is long, man. It's wild. Hey, Mark Marshall's watching. Hey, what's up, Mark? Am I allowed to do shout-outs too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Mark. Welcome to watching the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, Mark. Oh, Mark's a fellow nerd.
Hey, Mark, have you heard about Maine whoopie pies? I don't know why they're on my mind so much right now.
This is actually this is a like parody shirt for the Fisher Cats, or not the Fisher Cats, the Sea Dogs, Portland Sea Dogs. My brother he works for the Sea Dogs, and he designed they do a redesign every year for they have like a guest mascot, and they were the Whoopie Pies last year.
Oh, that's a really nice sweatshirt.
So this is a really dumb question, but does everyone want to be a dungeon master? Is that something everyone aspires to?
It's a lot of work.
I've been playing for... It's a ton of work. I've been playing for 11 years before I like ran my first game.
So let's say someone's in a game. Are they envious of that person, or are they just like, fuck that shit?
No. I mean, it depends on the person. But it's a lot of work, and it's also fun, like playing with a bunch of people who had never played. We all just started playing.
That's wild. That's cool.
So I had never had the opportunity to be a character, so I wanted to be a character, and so I ended up finding another group that I was able to be a character in that group, which was really fun to be a character. So both sides are really fun for me, but I'm also a control freak, so being a DM is great for me because I can control everything and I can like guide the story along and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I guess it depends on the person,
I think for me, I have the utmost respect for DMs. I throughout my entire gaming life have played through all of these stories, whether they were out of a book, because you can buy modules that have stories, or whether they were homebrewed. And I have experienced so much of like the intellectual property, if you will, of all of these people that I've been hanging out with for, over a decade. And boy, do I respect them. But there's a reason I only run one game. I play in 4 games a week, including like special one shots and stuff. And like my podcast aside, I do a lot of gaming for the podcast. A lot of it gets recorded and edited and put in as episodes. But my like leisure gaming, most of it I'm not running. I take a step back and I sit down because I love playing the characters. I love, I love not having to worry about everybody else's storyline for once.
Which I love knowing everybody else's storyline and like helping direct that and stuff.
Sure.
One of the groups I'm with is really into the actual like storytelling elements of it, which is so fun. Yeah. Because after every session, each one of them will reach out to me privately and we'll go over like, here's what I want for my character in the future. Here's what I thought about what happened, what I think about what I want to do next session, the things I aspire to. And then we work together to find ways to like make that happen.
Oh yeah.
And the goal is to never be like, no, you can't do that, but rather let's find a way to make that work in the world, in the story. You want to have your familiar pop up? Yeah, let's get you the ingredients you need for that. Let's make that happen next session because that's really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect. Like I just had a character die in a Pathfinder session, and my GM it was pretty brutal. Like, and it was all by the book. Everything was rules, and it was part of a module. He wasn't throwing anything. Like it wasn't an unbalanced encounter. It was just bad rolls, bad luck, and it was only our second session. And it was a character that I was really excited about. Everybody was really excited about. It was just a fun time overall, and he died. So instead of like trying to, we're level 1, instead of being, retconny and Deus Ex Machina and having come back to life, which would be ridiculous. Let's accept it. Made a new character, and we decided that as a little like fun thing, because my character died, he gets a unicorn. My new guy, he's just riding around on a unicorn. Why? Because we fucking can. Because it's Dungeons and Dragons, we can fucking do that.
So how does that work exactly? So you die, your character dies. Like you keep playing though. So let's say, is this kind of like, let's say you're playing a game of what's an equivalent game? Let's say you're playing like a card game. I don't know, Go Fish or something, and you end up losing, and then you just have to like other people play, or let's say Monopoly, right? So Monopoly, one person goes bankrupt, and then they stop playing, and then it's just 2 people. So you have to join, and you join back at some point, or how does that work?
Kinda. What really blows is if your character dies at the beginning of the session, because then you're spending the rest of the session making a new character and listening to your friends play. But yeah, typically, so what happens if your character dies, unless your party has the magical abilities to resurrect them, which usually doesn't come until like 10th to 14th level, depending on the game you're playing. You accept that loss. That character is Kaputski. You ceremonially burn their character sheet, and you roll a new character at whatever. Typically, I've never heard it any other way, but I can imagine that some people would do this. You typically roll a new character at whatever level everybody else is currently at in the game.
Right. That's very intriguing. It's very different than, say, like most video games or any video games that you play, because like it's all about replayability. You die, you just restart, and I get that from video games kind of sense, but everyone's like they save scum, I think is the term for it. So like they'll just reload saves, or they get a do-over. They like they lose one of their, say, favorite people, and it's like I used to play a lot of strategy games, and sometimes I lose a battle and I just reload because I lost my favorite, say, battalion or whatever. And I'm just like, everyone does that, but it's kind of strange that this kind of embraces the death of characters in a way.
Absolutely. Well, think about it this way. You're playing a video game, right? You're on story mode, and your character is so insignificant to the larger story that when you die, if your character dies, you just restart at that same checkpoint that you were last at, but as a completely different character with entirely different stats, with an entirely different background. Every time you die, you just start over at that checkpoint with a completely new person.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. One thing I try to do when I play games recently is I try to role play them a little bit and try to like accept consequences. So there's have you ever played the Witcher game?
Witcher 3, dude, is so good.
So with Witcher 3, there's sometimes you can make bad choices and people die or things go wrong. And I had a rule when I was playing that game. If I make a mistake and let's say I discern a situation and I play as I think Geralt would play and something goes wrong and it gets fucked up, I don't reload the save. I just accept that, I lost this one.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's just like not having the option. You do not have the option to go back and reload your save. That's all.
And a lot of people, when they can't have that issue, this kind of reload and like, oh crap, I missed this thing. It's like that's the thing, you missed it.
Oh, there's a +3 greatsword just chilling in that dungeon. Had you looked in the corner, you would have found it, but too late now.
Right.
You can ride 7 days back to find it, but it might be gone.
And I mean I have the equivalent of that as a DM, where you can kind of fudge some things in order to keep the game going. So session 1 was just like I had everybody start in a tavern, and there was like a couple of different things you could do. You could either be part of the talent show.
Hold on. You had them start in a tavern?
Of course.
That's like the like the most cliche.
Yeah, they had never played before, so the cliche is the best thing to do because you've never played, so it's all novel now. So they could either join, they could either do the talent show, a drinking competition, or an arm wrestling competition, or be one of the judges. So this gave different people the chance to. A barbarian would do the arm wrestling, or a dwarf might do the drinking competition. A bard may do the talent show.
That's racist. We're talking about classes. We're talking about classes, not races.
Oh, I see. Okay. Then what class is a drinking class then?
I don't know. Fighter. Fighters are typically or like maybe paladins.
Paladins are like paladins are like nice and like forthright.
Yeah, paladins are like sword and shield, god fearing.
They're servants of a god.
Yeah.
The righteous path.
Yeah, it's true.
So that was the first session. It was kind of learn how to use the mechanics, learn how to roll, learn each other's characters, things like that. And so the second session was the actual first session. They escorted a burned little boy to a witch, and then she needed materials, so she sent them on a quest to go get these materials. They're going through a swamp, and while going through it, they're jumped by shocker lizards. And these are a pretty unknown thing. I think they were a homebrew made by somebody that I found the sheet for somewhere deep in Tumblr.
Nice.
But they have a pretty low challenge rating. It's like a quarter or whatever. So
CR quarter, sure.
Challenge rating just being how hard they are to defeat.
Yes. Yeah, there's a whole ranking system of CR to like party size / level. There's a whole algorithm that goes into it, big table that, if you're a DM, this is, you can apply this many CR 1/8 creatures to this encounter for a party level of level 1 characters at 5 to 6 people. It's that kind of thing.
Okay, like a rule of thumb.
They needed shocker lizard tails for this potion, so it just happens to work out. They get jumped by some shocker lizards, so they're battling them, and they are all level 1. They all take 36 damage.
No, that's dead. That's dead.
The entire party except one person takes 36 damage. So
what was their HP? What was their max HP? Like 11?
Like somewhere between 7 and 12. It was really rough. If you go to 0 HP, Nate, you die, and then you have to do saving rolls.
Well, you fall unconscious at 0.
Yeah. If you take double your hit points in damage, you die. No saving rolls. You are dead. Yep, so the entire party died in the first encounter. So instead of saying they took 36 damage, I was like, you all take like 15 damage. So everybody still fell unconscious. And then we got to practice saving rolls. You get to learn what happens when you die. What happens when I get to 0 HP? Well, you're going to find out.
Thankfully, it's pretty hard to die in 5th edition D&D.
I mean, especially if you fudge the rolls.
Yeah, yeah.
So when they all died like that, so was that whole thing, was that, say, I don't want to say you doing a poor job, but was it just bad luck on that part? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. They all, like, the shocker lizards, the way that the priority of hits went, the shocker lizards all went last. So they attacked as a group, and anytime one shocker lizard is within X distance of another one, they can do a combined attack. So they all attacked and created electricity and shocked the party while in a swamp together. It was like the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I feel like you have to separate those as like, oh, shocker lizards CR a quarter, but like pack of shocker lizards CR 3.
There were 6 of them. There were 6 party members.
Oh my god.
But so it is what it is. But sometimes that's like your say. This will end the game right now. We're not going to do that.
That's what we in the business call a TPK.
Yes.
Which can stand for one of two things. It's either total party knockout or total party kill. So that what that was, everybody went unconscious, yeah?
Yeah. Everybody but one person.
Jesus. Yeah, you were very close to a TPK. What happens in a TPK? One of two things. If the entire party goes down and unconscious, then the DM can decide what would the characters that are fighting these people do with their unconscious bodies. Are they robbers that would steal their things? Are they militiamen that would put them in jail? Are they really evil people that would just kill them? So then, are they animals that are going to eat them? There's a list of what's going to happen next that the players have absolutely no say in. Typically, it's going to end up in jail or death if you fall victim to a TPK. Never a good scenario. So if a TPK happens and everybody dies and it's like session 3, you just restart the entire campaign with totally new characters.
We were not going to be restarting.
Yeah, sucks to suck, but
one person survived, so they were able to like res one of the people, and then they slowly, like, everybody got back up and they defeated the lizards. But I did have a backup plan that if everybody fell unconscious, there was an NPC who was going to come in and scare the lizards away and get everybody back up. So there's always ways that you can manipulate the game to save people. But because it was in a swamp, the NPC that was going to come in was Shrek.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, Shrek.
That's awesome.
And that's, of course, the best part of being a DM is I can write Shrek into my story.
So, okay, here's a question. So you said you fudged the die rolls. So you're the DM. So you can fudge die rolls, but players can't, I assume.
Correct.
Get that out of your mouth. Get that out of your mouth. Players are never allowed to fudge die rolls ever. Never, ever, ever. Under no circumstances can a player ever fudge a die roll. No. DM's fine.
So the nice thing about the way that we play is we're doing it all through Discord. So we have a dice rolling bot in Discord, so I can see all of their rolls, and I roll all of my dice here in the physical world, so they have no idea what I roll. So I can make up whatever I want. 99.9% of the time, I go with what's on the dice. The only time I don't is when it is going to ruin the game, ruin the fun. That's the general rule of thumb. That is the rule of. That's what a DM is supposed to do. From my perspective, is keep the game moving forward and fun.
Well, that's Gary Gygax's perspective as well. That's exactly what is supposed to happen.
And it says right in the handbook, both the player and the DM handbook, that the DM's decision is final, even if it directly goes against the rules written in this book that you're reading right now. This is the rule book. The DM's rules are better than supersede this rule.
And well, typically DMs will have a screen that they roll behind. Everybody sits around the table, like picture a long table, right? Your party's sitting along the sides of the table. The DM sits at the head of the table, and in front of the DM is a large, trifold piece of cardstock decorated with imagery and dragons and whatever. That on the back has a bunch of different tables of you can get ones that have like, oh, these are goblin stats and hobgoblin stats. If you're ever just like, oh, I'm going to throw this at you, one's got like conditions and stuff, little notes for the DM to have, and they just roll everything behind the screen because all of the players roll in front of each other, and it is a community experience. And the DM hides behind the screen of secrecy that says, okay, well, this guy rolled a nat 20, which is going to kill 3 of you. But what I'm going to say is this guy missed, you know?
Okay.
And you'll never know.
So how do the players perceive that? Do they like that, or do they think...
They don't know.
They don't know?
Ideally, they would never find out.
Okay.
Unless they're listening in on a podcast where I'm telling this story.
Well, everybody knows it's the practice. You know, a lot of people are familiar with the practice of DM fudging rolls. It's very, very commonplace. It's kind of what's supposed to happen. Nobody addresses it. Nobody would ever call out the DM on it. That's just kind of one of those unspoken rules. You do not call out your DM if you think they helped you somehow. If you think they hurt, well, then you rules lawyer them, and you pull out. You can at that point pull out the book, and you can.
And then you actually them.
Well, actually, push the glasses up. But yeah, no. Ideally, the player just hangs back and lets what happens happen. If the DM says success, it's a success. If the DM says failure, it's a failure.
And I mean, from your perspective, Nate, let's say you're a player in this game, and I tell you, you all should be dying right now, but I'm fudging this roll, so you're not actually dying. Are you going to be mad about that? Because the other option is the game's over, we're done.
Yeah, you say thank you.
I might be
Thank
mad.
you, sir.
It would remove the mystique of me if I told you.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I'm putting myself in that position, and it would kind of ruin the idea that my character is doing something. Like, oh, it's the DM kind of like that helped me win here. It's not like my character or the situation. It kind of changes the story a little bit. I could see something where it's like, maybe tell me like my personal god or something like came down and said, hey, here's a second chance, roll again or whatever. But if it's just like, okay, Nate, you're gonna die here, I don't want you to die, so I'm just gonna fudge this roll for you, like it kind of takes the agency up from the players. So I could see the impetus for not telling your players that you're fudging if you are fudging.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Which is the general rule. But I think the players, as long as they don't know, they don't care, and it's the rule of like, don't ask, don't tell, except not in a weird, gross way with the military.
Except get that paramilitary shit out of here.
Exactly. Except with a real military that fights dragons like real heroes do.
It's kind of interesting that that DMs fudge dice rolls, because it's actually something that happens in real video games too, to some degree, because like video games have luck, but something that they do is, let's say that the player gets unlucky too much, they usually have it programmed in there so that they'll actually get lucky again. So like in XCOM, I believe, like you can have like, say, these shots which are 95% and you can dismiss them, and you can dismiss all your shots, and that happens to everyone, but at some point it's programmed in so that you're gonna hit someone eventually, because it's statistically likely to happen, but it's not really fun for a player just to lose all their shots and to miss everything. So games are kind of programmed to do that as well, like video games. Not all of them, but yeah.
So we teased in the title here, which I just read and realized
we haven't told a single story.
Well, of course I did. I talked about shocker lizards.
Oh, that's right, shocker lizards. Yeah.
That you labeled this WNNT Live, which is not the name of our show.
We need talk.
What is the name of our show?
I don't know why that got me so much, but it was your delivery, I think. That was fucking flawless. Oh, man. But amazing can't miss D&D stories with Wingate. So I blame Wingate for not telling any stories yet.
All right. I've got a couple.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there. We're gonna cover these stories next episode, only because this episode is running a little long. So next time on We Need to Talk, part 2 of this, where we actually get to the stories this time. Maybe, probably. We need to talk.